So, the Mandela Effect. Tell me about it! Forbes.com says that the Mandela Effect is a fascinating phenomenon in which people share a collective memory that never happened. Sweet Savannah, tell me, how does this apply to Christianity?
The devil rules over hell.
Not true.
Welcome to Lived in Christianity, a podcast where we explore what it means to be a Christian in the modern world.
Because it do be crazy.
It do be crazy. And what it means to have a faith that is lived in.
What do you mean by lived in?
Something that we spend a lot of time in, something that's very authentic, might be messy, a place that, I don't know, just is obviously lived in. I don't know how else to
It's
say
real!
that. Yeah.
Oh, there's my computer making weird sounds. And as we just said in the intro, what's today's episode about?
Today's episode is about the Mandela Effect.
Spooky.
Yeah. So I'm Savannah.
I'm Emmanuel.
And we're going to dive into it. We have a whole episode about who we are, what our podcast is, where we explain having a lived-in faith a little bit more.
We have episodes about testimonies and... What was the last one? I should know this.
We did one on... No, not imposter.
Parasocial relations. Dunning-Kruger?
Parasocial relationships.
It was Dunning-Kruger.
Okay, yeah. So feel free to go back and check those out.
Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all the YouTube stuff. I watch my stuff. Please.
Mm-hmm. All right, so why don't you tell us what the Mandela Effect is?
Well, according to Forbes, because you have to cite your sources, Forbes.com says that the Mandela Effect is a fascinating phenomenon in which people share a collective memory that never happened. Spooky.
Do you want to explain why it's named that?
Was after Nelson Mandela, because people were like, ain't he dead? And he was still alive. But people were like, I thought he died, but he was still alive.
Yeah, so he was in prison in... When did
The
they
80s.
imprison him? In the 80s? Or a little before that, maybe?
Well, actually, he was in prison way before the 80s, I think. Hold on.
He was imprisoned for activism under South African apartheid, basically. And people thought that he died in the 1980s, and that was like a lot.
He was put in prison in 1962.
Okay, yeah. A lot of people, for some reason, I don't know why, had this idea that he had died in the 1980s. But he didn't. He actually was released from prison and then became... He
was released in 94, became president of the country because they won their activism and overthrew the oppressive apartheid regime.
Right.
And then I think he lived to like 2010 or 2013. 13 in our notes, it says.
Yeah. So the Mandela Effect is when a bunch of people have like a collective hallucination. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It's like when a bunch of people
Hallucination feels very tense.
Yeah. All remember something wrong, which can happen from... like misinformation, or it could just happen from maybe one person thinks it, then we all start to repeat that.
Or literal disinformation, like propaganda, where maybe the apartheid government really wanted people to think he was dead, and they secretly were like, he died in prison, and it spread around the globe, because, if something is like a rumor in South Africa, and then it like pops up in American news as like, people are saying that Nelson Mandela died in prison, no one's heard from him in months, years, and then people will just hear like Nelson Mandela died in prison, and it's like a horrible game of telephone.
To be honest, we didn't look into what specifically happened there with why people think that.
They might not know. I don't know if they know.
Right. So today we're going to be talking about how this applies to Christianity, but first I wanted to give a few other examples.
Context clues.
Yeah, because the Mandela Effect... I don't know how many people had that experience. I mean, I was not alive, so I mean the Mandela experience specifically.
Mandela. Oh, yeah.
So we have a few in our notes, and then you can say what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of them, people remember Mr. Monopoly with a monocle, but he doesn't actually have one.
I never cared enough about Monopoly.
Every time I say this, I second guess myself because I really did feel like he had a monocle. Yeah, he doesn't. I think my hypothesis, so if you're watching, you can see this as him. My hypothesis is that people mix him up with the Pringles logo. Is that the one with the monocle?
Oh, that's actually a really good hypothesis. I would support that.
No, the Pringles logo doesn't have the monocle.
Dang it, I can't support
What's the one with... Isn't there...
Is there a guy with a monocle? The Pringles mascot's basically Mr. Monopoly. He probably owns multiple franchises. He's a real estate mogul who started a chip brand. I don't know.
Okay, that doesn't have a monocle either. I don't know where the monocle thing came from.
I don't know. And the other one, though, well, she looks at monocles, is the Berenstein Bears. Because people, what is it? Is it like Bernstein or Berenstein? It's a pronunciation thing. It's like, but then also we have in our notes that it's about like a mirror on the wall is actually magic mirror on the wall. Mm-hmm. And my hypothesis completely, we didn't look into it, is I just blame Shrek. Maybe Shrek did it wrong, and now people are confused.
Yeah, we'll have to look into this after, because now I'm curious. But
that's just some context setting.
Mm-hmm.
Because we did deep dive into the spiritual things, we did not do deep dive into the, like, how many different Mandela effects are there and what are the possible explanations for why they happened.
Some of them are
However,
crazy.
I experienced one, which is, there's one about the Heinz logo, which is like, or Heinz, I think it's Heinz, not Heinz. Heinz is ketchup, Heinz is underwear, and they have the Fruit of the Loom brand, and which apparently I wore as a small child, and I totally was convinced, like, if you had asked me what their logo was, I would have said it had a cornucopia with fruit around it. But it doesn't have it. It's just the fruit, not the cornucopia. And the first time I read that was wrong, like an Instagram or Facebook thing, where you read one of those meme posts and you're like, what? That's not real. And you Googled it and you're like, oh, that one was real.
But this is like a shared thing. That's what's like crazy about this, is it's not just him who thought that. Like, there were other people who also...
Well, yeah, people on the internet who like admit that,
right.
Which
maybe there's a valid reason for it, but... Whatever.
I don't know. It's spooky, either way, valid reason or not. And so then, sweet Savannah, tell me, how does this apply to Christianity?
So...
She tells me to be more sweet and curing, and then she laughs when I do it.
No, you caught me off guard.
I know.
So there's a bunch of different concepts in Christianity that people who either are Christians or are not have certain ideas about, and that's not always accurate, but it's like a shared misconception. Mm-hmm. So I guess this could be just considered a shared misconception, but there's something about how, like, pervasive
like
that
everybody.
is,
it's like
that
a
I think is
cultural
really
thing.
Interesting. Right. So
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay. So this can apply to a theological concept, or it could apply to, like, a specific Bible verse that people either quote wrong or think is in the Bible and isn't.
I wonder, these ones, my hypothesis would be like some pastor somewhere gave a sermon, it was and interpreted it a certain way, and then just like leapfrogged for a long time until people just were like, doesn't it just mean that? Because I remember picking through some of the ones we're going to talk about, I would hear, because I went to a Christian high school, and I would hear people say, and I was like, well, that must be what it says. And as I read the Bible more, as I grew in my faith, I'd be like, it doesn't say it.
Yeah.
It's confusion. Anyway, what's an example?
So one of the biggest ones, which I think this is more of a thing that non-Christians believe, is that the devil rules over hell. Which he does not.
He does not.
Hell is a place of punishment for the devil.
Which, in Revelations, is very clearly outlined. Like, God creates hell, or specifically puts Satan in it. It's punishment.
It's punishment for him. It's not like oh, God rules over heaven, Satan rules over hell.
Yeah, there's no duality.
That's not.
Christians don't believe in a duality of good versus evil.
Not in that way.
Not in that way.
Yeah, so that's a crazy one.
I think that one's like a pop culture fault, though. Like, I'm always just thinking, like, why do people think this? And Dante's Inferno is one part of it, I think. Because, like, at the deepest, darkest center of hell is, like, betrayal. And it's like, Judas Iscariot is in there. And I don't know exactly how he contextualizes Satan himself. But, like, people get misconceptions about hell from Dante's Inferno. Because there's so many... And then it's, like, put in movies. And so then it, like, cycles. It's, like, the 9 circles of hell and all these things. But then also... things like South Park or different animated shows that, like, have the devil be a character. And he, like, rules over hell. And he's, it's got red with a curved little pointed tail and sits on a little throne, has a trident. He's like, I'm evil.
Right.
Like, that makes people think that as well. So it's, like, reinforced by pop culture. But then people really do believe it. Like, they think that that's what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. When it's not.
Which it's not. I mean, yeah, no, it doesn't say that. It does
not say that.
Satan rules over the demons. But I think that's kind of all we really...
Sort of the earth, if you
sort of
read
the
Paul.
But there's not, to my understanding, like a specific location that he's in.
No. It says he prowls around the earth. Yeah. So,
but he's not in hell yet.
No, he's not. And he also doesn't rule over anything. That's some good propaganda for the devil, which is not a great thing. Like, he does not have that power. Again, it's a thing that makes the devil co-equal in a certain way with God. It's like, oh, he rules over something, and he has his own little place where he can do whatever he wants. Mm-hmm. So, no, that's not how that's bad. That's not the theology. That's not how the theology is supposed to go.
Yeah, so the next one is one that I really, like, it's not significant. This last one was significant. This next one's not. It's just my biggest pet peeve ever.
Yeah, it is kind of annoying.
Which is, you might see on Facebook or just on the internet people say, oh, the Bible says do not be afraid 365 times.
Because God wanted you to have...
God wanted to remind us every single day
not to be afraid. And then it's like, isn't God amazing? Which, yes, first off, we believe God is amazing. Let's just say that. But because it's not true...
It's so not true.
It makes you look silly.
I don't even know that I would say that. It just... I don't know. It bothers me because it's so not true. So I'm like, where are you getting this information from? Yeah, so I didn't go through and count all the times it says it in, like, the translations I typically read. But I did find... a source that says in the King James Version it's 103 times.
Yeah, and depending on how you translate it, I read the other day it can go up to like 200 and something, like maybe 220 or 202.
But under no accounts is it 365. And the other thing about that is it has that statement has a modern and Western tilt to it because it's assuming...
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna walk all over your point.
No, it's okay.
You got it. I'm just excited. I'm sorry.
Like, it's assuming that God... put it in there 365 times because he's communicating to us modern Western Christians who follow that calendar when that calendar didn't exist yet, right?
It did not, because the Roman emperor made it after, like, Justinian, right? Is it Justinian who made
I have
the calendar?
No idea. I don't know. I just know that it wasn't
a Roman emperor who made the calendar. So that's and before that, because, like, you know, Old Testament, whatever, the Jews have a completely different calendar that's lunar, not solar, and our... modern kid, where is the calendar? It's not Julius. Anyway, I won't go down that rabbit hole. But it's a Roman emperor after Christ has already been crucified.
Right.
That implements the modern calendar that we have. It's why we go off of like AD, BC. I know they've changed that now to CE, BCE. But anyway, like, because it's built around Jesus' death and resurrection anyway, so it has to be after. But then also, did Jews use a lunar calendar? Right. It doesn't have 365 days in a year.
Yeah, and this is a bigger conversation, I guess, about westernization and modernization, because a lived-in faith does mean that us, as Westerners in the current world, have a westernized modern faith, but that doesn't necessarily mean that God is Western or modern.
And you don't want to read...
And definitely not Jesus.
You don't want to read into those intentions.
Right.
That's
so I guess sketchy. This one was a little bit more significant than
I feel like it is because it's theologically driven and like it can make God look bad to be like for instance, you're evangelizing to somebody. This is hypothetically. You evangelize into somebody and you're like, well, God really cares about you and he even told you not to be afraid 365 times so that every day you know not to be afraid. Isn't that amazing? And this person's like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. God loves me so much. And they go and look it up and they realize it's wrong. This is bad. Like, that will create a feeling for them of, like, having the rug pulled out from under them, which you don't want somebody to have if you're trying to introduce them to a loving God.
Or maybe, are there people today who don't follow this calendar that we do in other countries?
Like, culturally, maybe? But I don't know about, like legally. I'm struggling for the words there. I don't know.
But, I mean, if there were, then maybe, like, if there was someone who followed a different calendar... then they might take that as, oh, this God's not for me. I don't know if that happens with that scenario, but that does definitely happen. Do you want to move on to another one?
Yeah, Google says that other countries do not all use the Gregorian calendar. So
right. So then that...
It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Jewish, also, I looked it up. The Jews might have anywhere from like 350 to 380 days in a year because it's lunar, so they add and lose and all kinds of things are happening. Oh, this one is a little bit more basic, but all these have huge theological impacts. I feel like we're gonna, but in the world, not of the world. That's not what it says.
It's not what it says. Which
no, nope, doesn't say it.
What does it say? I didn't even look up. So can you?
Isn't that just an outcropping of Romans 12? I think we talk about this in our intro episode, where it's like, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Yeah. And so there's a lot of modifiers in there of like, you're not supposed to conform to the world, you're supposed to renew your mind. What does that mean? And like, being in the world and of the world is odd because like, okay, so I'm in the world, but I can't eat food. Okay. I don't know. You can kind of weird.
It's from John 17.
Oh, well, okay.
I mean, and Romans 12. So the verses say, it's Christ talking about his future followers. He says, I've given them your word, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. So I think it is still a principle that is true.
Yeah.
But it's not delineated in Scripture exactly that way. And it's also kind of confusing if you don't explain what that means. And in the
context of what Jesus is saying, I think Jesus is talking about stuff that when we say be in the world and of the world, we're not really talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was just hearing that.
Yeah,
like, he's not talking about not being corrupted by worldly influences, which is how Christians usually employ the rhetorical device of in the world, not of the world.
Yeah.
But it's not quite in there. It's also just not word for word, so like maybe we're being a little nitpicky. But it does matter, because if we broke down that verse and did like a real big deep dive, we wouldn't come out to just alone, don't do worldly things. Mm-hmm. Like, he's talking about so much more. What's the next one?
I'm going to skip down.
Oh.
But we can go back
on
our list.
Sure, where are we going?
So, we're going to the one that blew my mind, which is that we have no evidence that Noah was mocked for building the ark. That's not part of the story.
Maybe an easy inference to make.
It's an inference. So, like, I'm not saying, this did not happen, this is not true, but the Bible really doesn't actually say that it happened, which that was crazy to me, because I feel like I remember anytime anyone shared the Noah's Ark story, they talk about how, like, and all of Noah's neighbors and all the people around him thought that he was so crazy and he was persecuted in that way, but he actually was right because he followed God, which maybe that happened.
Maybe.
But it doesn't say in the original Genesis story, it doesn't say that people mocked him. And then where people get that from is later in, I didn't write the verse down. I forget if it's in 1 Peter, I forget where it is. But later on it talks about Noah building the ark, and it talks about, actually I don't even think it talks about Noah building the ark. It talks about how the people in Noah's age, like during that time period, were mockers, were scoffers of God, basically had no reverence for God and what he said. And so that's why the flood happened. It doesn't say that they mocked Noah for believing in God or even following him for building the ark.
I bet people back then didn't really care.
I have no idea what actually happened. In this, again, I don't know how significant this one is. I just know it blew my mind because I feel like I always heard that as part of the story. Mm-hmm. And it was used to be like, people will make fun of you for being a Christian, but you just follow God. Which, like, that can be true, but that's not what happened with Noah.
Yeah, it's not one of those examples where maybe, like, rhetorically the point is fair, but the way you're trying to go about proving your point is weak. Which does matter.
Yeah.
You want the things you say to people to be founded in something that's real.
I could also see that being part of an agenda.
Ooh.
Because, what am I hearing?
My chair's squeaking.
Oh. Because a lot of, in my opinion, some Western Christians have this idea that, everyone's out to get me. Everyone's going to make fun of me. The world is not, like, a safe place for Christians anymore.
Especially recent, like, our generation, because that was something in school, just as an example, like, when I went to Christian high school and I was in high school, they were like, if you go to a secular college, like a non-faith-based college, professors are going to make fun of you or actively try to, like, dissuade you of your faith. And I'm sure those people exist in certain places, but in 8 years of, post-high school education, my bachelor's and my master's, It didn't happen. And because I was at a public college, I think it also happened less because they're not allowed to. Unless you bring it up, they should not be, via their own code of conduct, mocking anybody's faith, because those colleges are full of a bunch like Buddhists and Muslims and other things. And so they have to be careful because they can make a lot of people upset, not just the Christians. And so I never dealt with that at all. I had professors who clearly weren't Christians and who clearly thought Christianity was silly, which they're allowed to feel that way, but no one ever tried to convince me. And a lot of them knew or figured it out.
Yeah, the other thing too is like animosity towards someone isn't persecution.
True.
It can lead to it. Anyways, that's a whole
rabbit hole.
Yeah, religious freedom is a whole other thing that
we should do an episode on that.
We should. It might be a little spicy.
Hey, spicy is good. We should do the spicy now, so when we're big in 8 years, they can dig it up later. We can get canceled.
What?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The next one, I'm gonna just, since we're jumping around.
Yeah, pick whichever one you want.
The God helps those who help themselves. Where does that one even? Do we even know where that one comes from?
So I think actually that I don't know if this is where it comes from. So basically, that's not a Bible verse. People say that, and it's not a Bible verse.
It's not.
What I would say is true in that is a lot of times when in Proverbs it talks about like the importance of not being lazy. And there's so many different verses about that. So that's where I could see like, oh, like God blesses people's hard work.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's like a general principle. It's not necessarily a promise.
Yeah, Proverbs are not promises. That's
they're general principles. So I can see where that's coming from, but I think it can be harmful because people can turn that into, oh, I have to rely on myself to get things done. And then when I do that, God will bless me. Yeah,
it makes certain things that come from God conditional that aren't supposed to be conditional.
That too.
At least not with that particular condition.
Yeah, that too.
Of like your behavior, like, oh, I didn't put in enough effort, so God let me fail.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not great. Or even people would say like, I didn't have enough faith, so God let me fail. And there's some verses that are a little bit more like legitimate, like that can lead to that, but that's just not.
It's just not helpful.
It's not helpful, and I wouldn't say it's true in the functional sense of like, you don't know why God told you no.
Yeah.
You shouldn't blame it on anything. You should just be like, God said no, and it is what it is, and full stop. Like, if you had to examine things about yourself, make it be mistakes that you've made, not because you weren't good enough or you didn't do it right. Like, that doesn't...
Yeah.
That's not going to be helpful and is likely untrue.
It's not helpful.
The other one that's right above it, that's one of my favorites, that's like not it, is God won't give you more than you can handle, which is, again, really close to what's actually in the Bible. Because the Bible says God will not tempt you allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. Yeah. Which is from James.
Good fix there. That God didn't tempt you, but he won't allow you to be tempted. Nice fix.
I got there.
Yeah.
But but it's so contextually so different. Being like, oh, God won't give you more than you can handle, implies God is giving you things. Which then when you go through a bad time, you're like, why did God give me this bad time? We all like to think we're Job, and sometimes we're just silly. But so those two verses that matter there are like when James also says that God doesn't tempt anyone. So people will say, I've heard them say it, like, why is God giving me this temptation? Right. And then they get really like upset where they're like, I'm trying my best, but God's tempting me. It's like, and sometimes they'll say testing, and what they mean is tempting. But because those two verses get mixed up a lot as well. And the contexts are so different, but it's like, okay, God won't let you be tempted beyond what you can handle, because there's always a way out of every situation, right? There's like part. But also when you're facing temptation, God didn't cause it. In fact, the other verse suggests that he's actually dialing whatever it is down. Yeah. Because you can handle it.
And I think the thing about that too is what it says is that it's like two different things. One, this is talking about temptation. This isn't talking about hard circumstances.
Correct, which are different.
It's talking about temptation. And the thing about that is there is always a way out of temptation. But I think of sometimes like if you don't take that initial way out, then you might end up in over your head and deeper than you can handle.
Yeah, which would be on you, not on the Lord.
Yeah, but it's not about hard circumstances. Like, I think sometimes people say this, I don't know if they mean it as an encouragement. I don't really know what they mean. To be
They
like,
do.
oh, like, God won't put you in a circumstance that's too difficult. And that is just, like, almost the opposite of what the Christian faith preaches, which is sanctification through trials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, I don't know, read the Psalms. David is constantly in situations that he emotionally cannot handle.
Or Moses being like, yeah, you're totally going to be fine going into the most powerful kingdom in the world at the time and just threatening the most powerful man in the world at that time. Like, Moses doesn't know it's going to work. Like, he's just, I mean, he believes it, but there's definitely like I guess I'm doing this now.
And I think it also depends on what on earth do we mean when we say what you can handle. Yeah. Because that can mean so many different things.
I remember, I don't know if I like literally fully believe this, but I remember being much younger, going through hard things and having the thought like, okay, here's some weird logic. Well, not weird, but here's some logic of like, it says that, you know, God will not let me, you know, be tempted beyond what I can bear, or this idea, like whatever. But because I have the help of the Lord and I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. If you think about it, and you bridge those two things together, then if you think that way, you could literally then arrive at the conclusion that actually God can give you whatever the heck God wants because God is there to help you do whatever the heck it is, and so you can do infinitely difficult things because you have the Lord to help you. And so it's almost like it's a funny little loop there if you get stuck in that where you're like, God gave me the really hard thing, but God will help me with the really hard thing, so he gave me an even harder thing because he can help me with the harder thing, and you're just like, I can do anything actually. I'm so powerful. I am so powerful because God's powerful, and then I'm not saying that that's capital T true. What I am saying is that if you get stuck on those thoughts, you can end up there, and then if it is true, then it can be infinitely hard because you have an infinite amount of support.
There's a lot to unpack.
And so it's just a tough thing to try to sell people on, or just to say in general where you're like, you know, God won't let you be tempted by more than you can handle. God will handle everything for you. It's like, so it can be infinitely hard then? I remember being very annoyed when I had that thought of like, so it could just be so hard for no reason. What? Anyway.
I don't know if I'm understanding what you're saying, to be honest.
Just the idea that if God is the one giving me the problem, which I don't believe in, really. If God is the one giving me the problem, and God is the one helping me with the problem, God can make the problem as hard as he wants because he's going to help me with it. Mm-hmm. And so that just means it can escalate in difficulty.
And what would you say is false about that?
Well, A, that I don't think God is giving me everything like we just talked about. And B, then it's just not encouraging. Yeah. Then it can't be encouraging because then it's like, oh, it's just going to get harder.
It's like leveling up in the video game.
Yeah, it's just
he's just going to keep going.
It's just going to keep, and that's not helpful. That doesn't feel encouraging. Like my point, good question. What's my point? Then it becomes not encouraging to say. Right. To be like, God won't let you be tempted by more than you can handle. It's like, well, God handles things with me, so it can be as hard as, oh no, oh no, like it did, you know. I don't know if any of that's true, literally, but I remember thinking that because of these verses. Like, I was going through my own, like, what does it really mean? Right. How do I, like, and that's, my brain was just, the logic, I was getting looped around.
It is such an interesting thing, because, I don't know, you come to God's sovereignty in that he is all-powerful, but hard things still happen, which the problem of pain is a whole other conversation. True. But then if he is allowing things to happen, and you are getting sanctified through them, which is like you're growing in faith, you're becoming more like Jesus, you're becoming a better person, you're becoming a better human. Hold on, I'm losing my train of thought. Then is he sanctifying you? Is he growing you through life circumstances that just happen to be happening? Or is he orchestrating life circumstances, including the hard ones, to sanctify you? This is a whole thing about the tapestry. And then you end up of God.
You're like Calvinism and Arminianism and a whole bunch of other things.
So we'll move on. From that. But yeah, I guess this is showing that even like small not misinterpretations as much as like missteps,
misunderstandings,
miscommunications about things that like it does not say don't necessarily cause huge problems, but
they can. Huge.
If you're someone who thinks as often and deeply
feel like
horribly as we do.
And I think most people do.
You're in a pit.
Most people, when they start to think about it, if they're the kind of people who are going to think about it, and you should be a person who thinks about it.
Yeah.
You can
spiral
real bad.
If you're a spiraler, you could spiral.
It's true. Let's pick out a couple more because we could, otherwise we'll be here for forever. Oh, okay. Do you have one?
Yeah.
Go.
Which this probably is the one you're gonna say.
Maybe.
So Jesus never says that money is the root of all evil. Jesus says that the love of money is the root of all evil.
There's that small little change.
Yeah.
There's that small little... it's so huge in its implications, tiny in its difference.
It is, and this is a tricky one because I could actually see people taking this to say like, oh, it's okay to be super, 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 super wealthy.
People do that.
And that's not really what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying that being a billionaire is a good thing necessarily, but it is about what you're willing to do with the money. So some people are rich, some people are poor. That's how it is. And it's not the money itself that's the bad thing. What's bad is
your relationship with that money.
Your relationship with the money and systems of greed that can cause the inequality.
And part of that too is, historically speaking, a lot of people who make that kind of money are ruthless. Like, like the Rockefellers and the Carnegie and like all those guys, the robber baron type people, like they're ruthless.
People love them.
Well, they do because they build cool things. People love guys who build cool things, and they do technically expand the working class, but they make a certain subset of population extra poor, and so it the working class expands, but then so does like the amount of people who are making nothing, there's a certain number of the middle class expands off the backs of people who don't get to make anything. So for all the people who do get to make stuff, it's great. But for that 10% who are struggling, the struggle is
it's like an MLM.
Huge.
No?
I don't know. Maybe I'd have to diagram it out. But the idea is Carnegie makes infinite amounts of money.
Yeah.
The people who run his factories and his things that run them and own and manage everything, they're making a good amount of money. So it is a bit of a pyramid. Mm-hmm. And then all those workers underneath them who are getting paid slave wages.
Yeah.
And are wage slaves, which is the term they used then. That's not even a communist. I mean, it develops into some communist stuff, I think. But that's just a terminology from the century, in the 1800s when these guys are doing their thing in the Gilded Age in the late 1800s. They're slave wages. You can barely live, and that's why your whole family, including your 5-year-old, has to work. Anyway, we're off on a historical tangent. The point is the relationship with money matters, and if you could have all that money and be ethical with it, then yes, the Bible wouldn't care if you had all that money.
So it's a balance, right? Because some people might take the verse of oh, money is not evil. Some people might be oh, so I can make a ton of money, God's fine with me being super rich and hoarding it, and that's not true.
It's true.
But it's also not necessarily right to go the other direction and to be oh, what if I love money too much? What if I'm getting too much money? If maybe I have to make minimum wage and maybe I have to take a vow of poverty. And I mean, I do have respect for people who will take that vow for certain reasons, but it's not necessarily...
It doesn't make you more holy.
Neither of those are right, because it's not about the money.
Yeah.
It's about what you're doing with the money.
And how you relate to that money.
That happens on an individual and a systemic level of how you individually use and relate to your money and the opinions you have about how money should be.
Yeah. Well, it's there's this problem of there are people who believe that if you are super wealthy, God has blessed you, prosperity gospel type stuff, or even just old school, ancient ideas of if you're blessed with money, or if you have money, that means you are blessed by God.
Right.
Well, in the same way they believe if you were born with a defect, you were cursed or something. Which and so neither direction is great. Social Darwinism would be well, the poor were born poor, and so they that's just who they are.
Yeah.
Which is wrong. But then to believe that the rich people are rich because they are divinely given the right to be rich is also wrong.
Yeah.
And so it depends. You can you can spiral But again, like greedy people, God does not like greedy people. So that's why like the love of money is the root of all evil, because it translates into greed. And like most of those billionaires, they don't be tithing. Just saying.
Yeah, could you imagine the tithe?
Here's the thing. It's because they don't have any fluid cash.
Yeah, that's
billionaires
true
are
too.
like, it's all just on a piece of paper. They don't have real money.
Anyway. But this can get so twisted. The other thing I'm thinking of is I've seen a lot of Christians go on mission trips or be around people who are poor, whether that's in other countries or in the States, and have this statement of like, oh, poor people have so much joy. Because they have nothing, they have so much joy in the Lord. Which, yes, materialism is bad. Yes, bad circumstances can cause us to rely on God. But I actually think that is...
so insulting.
Infantilizing?
Yeah.
To say that to someone?
Yeah. Also, I think it's untrue.
Yeah.
So, like, having been to... like a Guatemala and been in places that are like in suffering huge levels of poverty and like structuralized racism in like indigenous communities.
Right.
I've like in doing home visits and things like that where you meet these people, they are they are capable of having fun. That doesn't mean they are filled with this innate joy, because when you talk to them about their lives, sometimes they just break down and they cry. And they don't understand how mental health works, and they don't even understand always their own feelings because they're in poverty and they are systems that are not allowing them to be educated on all these things. And so, like, it's almost like people are so surprised that that someone who's poor can have joy at any or express any amount of joy, that they're like, oh my gosh, they have so much joy. But it's like, you thought the poor people would be like incapable of laughter?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And then also it can turn into a thing where, like, you can get your mind, like, oh, poor people must be in such destitute, horrible circumstances. Oh, here's a poor person. Wait, they seem pretty happy, and they seem pretty resilient. Wait a minute. Maybe poverty is what makes you closer to God. Maybe it's good that they're poor, because the fact that they're poor is what's keeping them close to God. And I don't know that we necessarily know that our minds go that way.
But they do.
But that definitely happens.
They do. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people will use that as, like, excuses to not bring people out of poverty. To like, well, you don't want to ruin their... It's like some weird... It's, like, similar to Noble Savage type, like, thought processes, I feel like. I don't know, but I just do know that, like, I do think it is crazy that people assume, like, oh, poor people don't know how to, like... That they expect them to be, like, sad sacks, bent over, and capable of laughter, just, like, I don't know, like a caricature of a poor person from a movie or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, they have families and they have people that they love and care about, and their children play together, even though, and like in their mind they don't maybe necessarily know any different. So yeah, of course they can have joy. It's really hard to steal someone's capacity to have fun, even if, because you're just doing your best.
But then I think because there's an inability to relate and understand, when some people see that, then they go the other direction of like, oh, they're always joyful. And they're not. People.
They're people.
They're
like,
the same way that non-poor people are.
Yeah, they just like, because all the smiling faces and blah, blah. I'm like, well, because sometimes people be like, well, I see all the pictures and they're so happy. It's like, yeah, they're smiling for a photo op because you just brought them presents. Of course they're happy.
Right. Or maybe there's a pride thing of wanting to put on a certain air, like...
Maybe.
I don't know.
But I mean, like, whenever we do, like, the home visits, no one's like, no one laughs during those. Those people aren't telling you jokes. Their life sucks, and they are doing their best to survive, and so they're not having a good time. And if you could take them out of it, you know what? They'd be just as joyful, because it would mean they didn't have to scrounge anymore. Like,
and I don't think it... I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go.
I don't think it necessarily honors their resilience in their hard circumstances to be like, oh, they have nothing, so all they have is God, so they're happy.
Yeah, it's not. That doesn't
work. They're resilient, and they have survival mechanisms, which could include that, and it's just more complicated.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure, well, I've read about it, but, like, people were laughing in concentration camps.
Yeah. That
doesn't mean that they have joy of the Lord, or that they were, they were in a concentration camp. Some of them, their best friend could have been gassed or beaten to death or whatever, and they're still capable of, like, finding something funny. Humans are really resilient that way. It doesn't have any deeper spiritual meaning or bring you any closer to God in any way.
Right.
Because your situation sucks and you can still be joyful. It's just bad logic. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not to say that people aren't experiencing the joy of the Lord in poverty or other hard circumstances. But it's just hard because that can quickly become, oh, they're experiencing that joy because of those circumstances. And I would say that is harmful.
I'd agree.
To believe or say.
I'd agree.
Okay.
Should we do like one more?
Yeah, I thought this was going to be quick. I always think
we always have so much to say because we're yappers. So the one I was going to say though, well, there's two. Maybe we can hit them at once. But that the 7 deadly sins isn't in Scripture, and that also it doesn't say hate the sin, love the sinner.
Oh my gosh, that could be a whole episode.
Maybe we'll do it. Post it if you get this far. Tell us a comment. What should it be? Do you want us to make an episode about hate the sin, love the sinner?
So the 7 deadly sins are, I believe, all mentioned. Hold on, let's go through them. Anger, right?
Yep.
Or wrath. I think it's wrath.
Wrath, anger, greed. Pride. Greed.
Sloth.
Lust. Gluttony, and envy? Yes, that sounds right.
I think those are all mentioned in Scripture.
Like they're talked about, but there's no... So,
but not as
some
a
other
list.
dude, I literally was reading about it in a different book the other day, because it's a theologian who lived, like, later, like a priest or something, who, like, wrote about these things and, like, codified them. So it's not that the Bible doesn't care about those things, it's just that there's nowhere in the Bible where you're going to see the phrase 7 deadly sins.
Or like a list of those specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think they're helpful categories of types of sin. I would have to think for a long time.
I do think again, this is oh, I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Like, I would have to think a lot about something that doesn't fit into those categories that's a sin.
Well, I think what I was thinking was, that's another area where Dante's Inferno, because it's like, there's 7 deadly sins and the layers of hell, and there's like this breakdown of like what it means, and then you start to codify, like, okay, there's the 7 deadly ones, which means these ones aren't deadly.
Yeah, like,
and so there's again huge theological options for when you say these things.
Right.
What do people begin to subconsciously or unconsciously infer? And what they're inferring is these ones are deadly. There's ones that are not deadly, and these ones are really bad. And so if I do this, but then like, because Dante literally stratified them in terms of like, well, deeper layers of hell. So these ones are worse. And so it gets even more complicated. People just think that Dante's Inferno is a book of actual theology, and it's not. It's just a guy who's really upset that his wife died, okay? That's all it is. He's sad his wife is dead, which is relatable in the sense of, like, I would also be sad if my wife died. But it's not theologically binding or sound. It's just a dude who's sad.
One of the authors that I like, R.F. Kuang, just came out with a book that is about hell and, like, riffs on Dante's Inferno. Anyways, that's not relevant.
My students, when I taught it in World 2, thought he was on drugs because he was so sad and that he was having hallucinations induced by drugs.
Maybe. The only thing that I can, like, think of right now off the top of my head that is not in the list is there's nothing about deception or, like, lying.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of at the top of my head. There's probably others.
Most definitely. But I think, again, it's just, like, if you think certain things are deadly, you infer that other things are not deadly. You think God cares more about one thing than another. Or, if you've committed a deadly sin, you might feel more irredeemable. Like, oh my gosh, I committed the deadly sin of greed, and now God hates me, or something. Like, you can really start to... It can start to go some awkward places that aren't good.
Or you can be like, oh, if I do this thing that's not one of those things, then it's fine.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up. Last one. Hate the sin, not the sinner. Here's the thing.
Okay, yeah.
Hate the sin, love the sinner?
Yeah, no, you said it okay.
Hate the sin, not the sinner? Yeah. Hating sin is not helpful. Maybe that's right. We're going to get canceled. I'll get canceled for that, won't I? I don't think hating sin is helpful, because that means you start to hate yourself for doing a thing that God says you're going to do. It's going to happen. You're a human being. You will make a mistake. That mistake will separate you from God or also other people, and it will be wrong. Like, you'll have done a wrong thing that God doesn't like.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen because you're a person. And so if you're like, hate the sin, even if you think about it for other people, right, it affects you. You're going to think about it yourself that way too. You're going to, like, it will cause you maybe to start to hate yourself. Additionally, you can't actually do both at the same time, because if you hate the sin, love the sinner, how can you do that without attaching your hatred to the person who did the sin? It's really, I would say, impossible. I believe that's impossible to do. It's also not in the Bible, so you don't have to worry about it anyway.
I just think it's a kind of a bizarre way to frame things.
Oh, yeah. People want to talk out about sin, though. So they're like, well, I'm just saying sin's bad, and I should be able to say sin is bad but that doesn't mean I don't care about you.
Yeah, but it's just... I don't know. It's just bizarre to me. I mean, yeah, like the Bible says what is sin and what isn't. It also tells us very explicitly to not judge other people.
Judge not.
And so I think people feel like, oh, I'm not supposed to judge them, but I'm still allowed to tell them that, like, what's right and wrong. Like, that's different. Mm-hmm. Which I kind of get, but I also just don't see how, like, helpful and practical that is.
I mean, not very.
Like, there is a role for you and someone who is a Christian who wants to follow God in, like, accountability. But there's not necessarily, I don't think, a role for, like, seeing the average Joe and being like, man, I really hate the way that he swears all the time, but I don't hate him. Like, I just...
It's like, no, you do hate him.
It's... I mean, I don't think it has to be that strong.
I
just think it's weird.
I just think that deep down you can't do both. I just really believe that. Like, if you say, like, I really hate the way that person talks, but I think they're a great person, deep down, you don't like that person.
So what would you say about, like, what can I think of? Like someone, maybe there's, like, someone who's a really good friend of yours you really love, mm-hmm. but they're an alcoholic. How would you talk about, like, alcoholism is a horrible thing to be entrenched in? Mm-hmm. Or maybe not even that, because alcoholism is a different example. Maybe I guess it is that way though, because I was trying to think of like what's like a friend that maybe you really love, or like imagine a situation like that, but they do this really horrible thing.
I'd be really mad at them.
Yeah.
I'd be really mad at them. And maybe there'd be a part of me that still fundamentally loved them, but in that moment also, like, I would be angry at them. And if they continuously did that to a point where they were damaging themselves and other people, I wouldn't like them anymore.
I think the other thing about this...
I don't know, or maybe what I mean is, like, I wouldn't support them anymore.
In that way.
Like, I don't know. But I think that's why it's so difficult. It's like, there are things mm-hmm. I know, like, if I say, like, I don't like this thing, like, alcoholism, like, I hate, like, if I said I hate alcoholism, but I love the alcoholic, I don't know. I feel like that's why the language isn't practical. Like, I shouldn't say I hate alcoholism. What I should say is, I think alcoholism is dangerous and hurts people. Mm-hmm. If I hate it, that actually gets complicated for me, because it means that I'm feeling this emotion all the time, and I'm hating something, and I'm like, and that, I know it's weird, because I'm like trying to pry apart these things that are mm-hmm. hard to pry apart, but I do think it's better to say alcoholism is destructive, and I don't like when it destroys things. It makes me sad.
Right.
And I should be able to feel sad, rather than being like, I hate this, and feeling hatred.
Yeah, like,
those
hatred
are two different,
is just not
those are two different things. And I don't want to hate. Like, people say, like, oh, hate's a strong word. I get really annoyed with it. I'm like, oh, I hate that. And I'm like, oh, hate's a strong word. And I'm like, yeah, I'm using it colloquially. Go away. Shut up. But, like...
But it is a strong word.
But, like, but still, it is a strong word.
To really mean it.
And if you really mean it. And so, like, when you start to say hate the sin, love the sinner, if you're starting to be like, well, I hate this, the animosity that's going to come up inside of you because you hate that thing is going to really damage your ability to see that person as a person. And so that doesn't mean that I like alcoholism is a good example. I would use different language. I would want to feel differently about it. I would want to feel brokenhearted. I wouldn't want to feel hate.
I think the other thing about this that really does get to me is I've only ever heard people say this in terms of sexual sin or gayness.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think maybe if people said this about, like, greed or about lying or about abuse of power or about exploitation, I think I might feel differently about it.
Well, it's because it doesn't work.
Because at that point, I would be like, okay, I do think the connotation you have is correct. Like what am I saying? I'm saying at that point, I think I would be like, okay, when you're saying you hate the sin, you genuinely are saying you do not like this thing that happens that hurts people.
Yeah. And
that to me reads different than when people are talking about people who they believe are sinning sexually and they say, oh, hate the sin, love the sinner.
Yeah.
Well, the only way I could feel like, oh, that is super helpful is if we're talking about, like, a physically, emotionally, deeply harmful sexual sin, like taking advantage of people or abuse of power.
Yeah.
But to just...
Or like abuse of children.
Yeah, to just say it about someone who you think, like, shouldn't be having the attractions or sex that they're having...
Yeah.
Why do you hate that?
But it's because it doesn't work everywhere. So it actually breaks down if you use other places. If I said, I hate gluttony, but I love people who are overweight, what? What? It doesn't work. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It just sounds weird.
It sounds, but if you say, like, oh, hate this, but, like, I just think, because there's some people will say hate this thing because they're like, well, we're supposed to detest sin, or, like, God detests sin, so we need to detest sin. And
I just don't think hate is helpful.
But it's also like...
Yeah.
Things that make God angry don't need to make us angry in the same way. It doesn't need to be the same way.
Yeah, it's not our job.
It's not our job. I mean, personally, because it says in the Bible, like, no man is righteous, not even one, which my other hot take is, like, it's really hard to have righteous anger as a human because we cloud it with all of our sin.
Yeah.
And all of our, like, inclinations towards sin. Mm-hmm. And so people will say, well, I'm righteously angry about this, so I'm allowed to say it's detestable because God would say it's detestable, so I can say it's detestable. It's like, so you're God? Right. No. Like, you should be brokenhearted because Jesus' heart is brokenhearted. Like, that's where we can go. And if you go beyond that, you're playing God, and you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, and I kind of want to do a deep dive about the words that God uses for how he feels about sin.
Yeah, we'd have to pull up those verses and really... do some
What does
studies.
It mean by hate? Because when I think of the way that God talks about sin and relates to it, to me, I think more of, like, the sense of being repelled. Of, like, he literally cannot coexist with it.
Yeah, for to explain that way, like, he can't be in the presence of certain things. I don't
think of him just sitting there stewing.
Yeah,
which I think that a lot of times is what we mean.
Well, that's how people function.
When we say hate.
When they say they hate something, you hate it so much if you see it online, you'll leave a comment because it bothers you, and you can't not say something mean about it. You see it, and you get visibly discomforted, and you might say something mean, and you might say something hurtful on purpose because you're like, I hate this thing, and I want to hurt it. And that's why that's a bad posture to have, because if you feel that way about the sin, people's sins are attached to them. You can't separate it. If you hate the thing that they're doing, you're going to hate part of them.
Yeah.
And if you don't at the beginning, you will over time.
I think, to make it practical, I think what we would say, or at least what I would say and what I would always say, is to focus on redemption and focus on the good.
Which is what Jesus
I don't even think we need to
Jesus would focus on the redemption.
Like, yeah, we can call out sin, but I don't think we need to spend the time thinking about how and why it's so wrong and hating it. Like, I think it's better to call people into things, to focus on what they should. Not even should. I don't even like should, but to focus on what's best.
What's helpful.
And what's helpful.
Yeah.
Rather than, I don't know.
Well, I think part of it is sanctification, or the idea of, like, even a different idea of healing. I think is what I'm talking about. Is you want to facilitate the healing of other people and introduce them to God. Just telling them that what they do is wrong and bad you're going to get nowhere. But if you come to them and say, wow, you seem really hurt, and you've done these things that hurt people, would you like to heal from that? I know this God who can help you heal from that, and that's the redemption part. And then you can walk them through, like, a different process, and you approach that, because that's how Jesus approaches a lot of things, is for, like, when he approaches the woman at the well, and he's like, yeah, you haven't had one husband, you've had, like, 5 husbands, the man you're with now is not your husband. I don't hear any hate in that. He is just telling her, like, the truth.
I think he did that. I don't even think he did that to call out her sin.
I don't either.
He did that to be like, I want you to listen to me, and I know doing this is going to make you listen
like, this
to
is going to get your attention.
Yeah.
But even in that context, he didn't tell her, which you obviously know is wrong and you shouldn't be doing. Because she already knows it. So he doesn't have to tell her what she's doing is wrong. She already kind of knows this is socially unacceptable.
Right.
And I'm doing it anyway, as the choices I've made. And so Jesus in that moment doesn't have to remind her. He doesn't remind her because he thinks it's wrong. He knows she knows it's wrong. He doesn't need to remind her. And people often do that. People do. It's like, no one's going to be like, oh my gosh, that's wrong. Like, occasionally that might happen. I know a few examples, like people who are not believers who became believers are like, oh, we shouldn't live together. Right, that's a Christian thing.
Yeah.
But it's not like they didn't know Christians didn't believe that. Or believe that, sorry. Like, people know Christians believe that.
And if they're not doing it, it might just be because they don't agree.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's not helpful to be like, oh, I hate what they disagree on with me.
Yeah.
About. Like, I hate that thing.
Yeah. It just, you'll get stuck in the hate. You won't go anywhere. And you won't help anybody. You won't. You'll just go spin in a hateful circle until you do more damage than good. Because yelling at people about what they're doing is wrong. They know.
I think it should just be love the sinner, period.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty Jesus thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we do
Anyways, we went over.
There is no over. We don't have a set time.
I know, I just feel like we went over. Anyways.
Well, that's because you thought it was going to be quick.
I thought it was going to be quick.
We went on some epic rants, though.
Yeah.
High five for epic rants.
Here's the Mandela Effect. That was probably really horrible to listen to, our high five.
I'll tone it down.
I'm really sorry.
I'll tone it down. They won't even notice.
We talked about the Mandela Effect. We talked about how that applies to Christians. Talked about some misconceptions about what people think happens in Christianity, what people think is in the Bible, and how people apply the Bible. What do you think?
Little differences can expand into huge theological problems.
So let us know. Do you disagree with us on any of these?
No, don't tell me that. I don't want to know. No, I do want to know. I invite it.
I know we're a little spicy, and you might be a little spicy in the other direction. And there's enough room in faith for the spice.
It's true.
Faith is like a good chai. Lots of spice. Lived in faith.
Lived in faith. Lots of spice.
Lived in faith. Lots of spice.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Bye.